talk about the macro recorder, how to actually record a macro now. Let's take a look at our spreadsheet. From the developer toolbar, you must have the developer toolbar. Do you remember how you do that? You go to files and options, etc. But for the moment we've got our developer toolbar, but if you look, you might have to let's take a look. There's our record macro at the moment, but I'll just make that a bit bigger so now you can see what we're doing. Record macro. So I'll click on that. We're going to say macro 2. Well, that's fine. We'll leave that name. And then Control Q is what we're going to use to run the macro. Now be particularly careful not to choose the personal macro workbook. That can cause a little bit of trouble. And this is why it's a little. You really ought to know what you're doing to record a macro. It's not always straightforward. If you were to choose that personal workbook, you'd probably wonder what's going on. We will discuss that in a moment. So if I click OK, and now you can see it says up here stop recording, and that's because the macro is running and it's listening to whatever you're doing. So what we'll do is make something bold and underlined and red perhaps. So how do I do that? Well, obviously just that'll make it red, and that's underlined, and that's bold. So it's doing those three things in one go. So now I need to go back to the developer and stop recording. If I have any text, you see, then I can just click on that and do Control Q, and it does those three things together. So that's what a macro is. It's something which does lots of things in one press of a key. You can see even if you have a different, you have a bigger region, you can run your macro on that and it will do it to the whole region. How do we? Let's take a look at the macro itself. We could go through here. We could go through here. I think I'll go through here, which is sheet 1, but and then view the code. Well, you can see it was already there. But okay, now where is my macro? Well, there it is in there, as a matter of fact, in module 1. Every time you record a new macro, you will record it into the module. The module will be created. But you will get a new module for every session. What does that mean? That means when you start Excel, that's what we call a new session. So a new module will be produced every time you record a macro in a new session. And sometimes you might view other people's spreadsheets and view what we're looking at now, the Project Explorer, and you'll see module, and all over the place. And because that's what happens every time you record a new module with a new workbook. It makes a new module. So let's take a look at, well, by the way, it might not look like that to you because you might have your folders on here. So if you were to click that, you see your module is sort of hidden in there, but that's fine. At the end of the day, it's in the module, which I'll double click. Now you notice that we've got some commented code here. It tells you what the shortcut is. You could delete this if you want to. This width and end width, well, it's a little bit, it's what the macro recorder does. Let me just show you how I might not use width and end width. It's really just it's not a sort of programming construction, it's just a way to save a bit of typing. So I'll just copy that and paste that here, and paste that here. And then I can get rid of that and that. Can you see what it's actually doing? It's just putting a selection font in front of each of those. But I will leave it like that. This looks like it's the code for red. You could use the VB red, would make more sense, but look at this. This is some tint and shade. You see, we don't really need that, so I'll get rid of it. But you can obviously see that this is going to underline in a single line, and then it's going to make the font bold equals true. So let me just try and, having done all those modifications, let me just see that it still works. Put my text in, Control Q, and then that runs the macro again. Excel has what we call at the moment an A1 style. That means you've got letters across the top and numbers down the side. That's the A1 style. Well, if we like to change that, I'll go through the file and then the options and take a look at formulas. And you see this here, it says R1. This is the alternative, the R1C1 style we call that. You look now, we've got numbers up the top. Well, let me just put it back for the moment in the formulas, and where am I? Options, and then formulas, and then put it back into the A1 style with the letters across the top. I'll put in here a simple formula to multiply this number by 2, and then I'll drag the formula down and um, and and multiplies each one by 2, and you can see in the formula here that that's what the formula is saying. It's quite clever, really, isn't it? That goes from A1 into A2 into A3. Very clever indeed. Let's take a look at the R1C1 style. We'll go back and put the formulas back into R1C1 and then take a look. Now look how the formula is specified this time. And it says here, when it says row, that means the same row. There's no square brackets following it, so it's the same row, but the -1 means the column to the left. So you always have, well, you don't always, you could have some square brackets in here, but at the moment it's got square brackets referring to the column on the left. And when you look at each one, then it's not that clever, really, is it? It's all the same formula. And anyway, it appears a little less clever. If I do a control grav, now the grav is a bit hard to find. It's under the escape key, top left. Funny little thing. It looks like an apostrophe. But if I did, you see, I can expose all of my formulas in the spreadsheet at one time. And if I do control grav again, holding the control key and pressing that key, it toggles back to what it was before. I'll put that back to the ordinary R1C1 style, and you'll see why I'm mentioning this in a moment. So I go to my options and then formulas, and then turn off the R1C1 style, and I've got the A1 style back again. I'm now going to record, I might as well just delete this stuff here. I'm now going to record a macro to add up these numbers here. So I start off, my cursor's over here, that's fine. And then I go on to record a macro once again. And macro, I'm running out of keys here, so I'll say Control A, yes, and that is fine. Now it's listening to me, as you can see that where it says stop recording. So what I'm going to do is to click here and then go to the A to Z, there we are, the sigma, and just add them up, and I'll click that again, and that adds them up, and that's all I want to do. But I want to stop the macro from recording, which is here, and then go and take a look at the codes. Well, for a change, I'm going to click here. Well, it's actually in the background, isn't it? We can see it, but if I want to, I could go through here to find my, and there it is here, you see. Now, you can take a look at the range A4 select. Well, that's what I did. I selected this cell over here in the first place, but it's interesting, it uses the A1 style, range A4, but you'll notice when we're using formula R1C1, it uses the R1C1 style. There's no rhyme or reason for this. Sometimes it does that and sometimes it does that. It doesn't even depend whether on the spreadsheet you're in either R1C1 or A1. It doesn't make much difference. There's no rhyme or reason. Sometimes it does that, sometimes it does that. Okay, if I just take a look at this formula here, see it says the sum, row -3, column, now and row -1, column. What that means is you're here and it says row -3, column, means there in the same column but 3 rows up. 2, TO, this colon here says row -1, column, in other words to this particular cell here, and that's using the R1C1 style.